I'm not really in a coffee shop. I'm really in my office. That has been a fake, it's been a virtual background this whole time. That's
What?
not an actual back and not an actual coffee shop called like Scott's Coffee House. I actually do that from my desk. But because we're all friends here, I felt it was okay that I can be honest with you. Uh,
I'm shocked, appalled.
yeah, I know. I don't keep a lot of secrets, but that was one of them that I've kept to myself is that it's not real. And apparently Zoom did some sort of an update in the last 24 hours, and wherever that virtual background was before, it is no longer there. So we're going to go with the blurred background. In fact, I'll shut my door in case someone happens to come in along the way. But anyways, happy July.
This is insane. It's
Happy
the fact
July.
that it's July. That's crazy.
Yeah, we are officially in the second half of the year as it relates to months. But interestingly enough, today is only the 181st day of the year, maybe 182. So actually, we're not halfway through the year, but we're halfway through the months, if that makes sense. There's more days July through December than there are January through June by at least one, if not two
Days,
days,
not months.
not months. Same amount of months. I think there's one additional day the second half of the year. So none of that's important other than to say it's July and we got to get our heads straight. We got to keep moving forward in our businesses. Um, I don't know about y'all, but it's been a little interesting around here. It's always a little bit interesting in June around here. It seems to be over the last couple of years, anyways, that people go on vacation, people take time off, people are with families. Kids are out of school. The weather's a little bit better. You might have kids in Bible camp for the week, things like that. And then obviously we have a big birthday celebration on Saturday. But we'll see if things start to shift a little bit as we go into July. If more buyers or sellers get their focus back on real estate. But regardless of that, there is plenty of opportunity out there for all of us. So regardless of the quote unquote market, this is a opportunity for all of us to go take an unfair share of of the buyers and sellers that do actually need our help out there. So I thought today we talk a little bit about building rapport. Um, as it relates to client attraction. Now, I want to say this kind of really clearly from the very beginning. This is not about manipulation. This is not about being Yoda and doing Jedi mind tricks on people. Uh, Rapport is building at its core. It's building relationship, and what we know about it is it's actually a skill. It's not a personality type. And because it's a skill, it's something that we can learn, that we can be trained at, that we can get better at. And so today we're going to just walk through the science of making those connections. And we're going to kind of put it through these four different filters of winning the doorway, getting them to talk about themselves, matching their energy, and then going first on being vulnerable. So here's where we're going to start with is on winning the doorway. So I've got some notes in front of me. So if you see my eyes dancing around a little bit, I'm going to read a couple of things this morning, just some different studies that were done. So there was a study done at Princeton. So Princeton psychologists flashed faces at people for as little as 100 milliseconds. So they'd snap a photo of somebody up there just for an instant like that. And what they found was snap judgments of trustworthiness made it in that tenth of a second. It correlated almost perfectly to the judgment that people would make over time. So saying differently, this snap judgment, this image being up there for a tenth of a second, people would instantly make a determination whether or not that person was trustworthy or not. In fact, if they let that image stay up longer on the screen, it did not change their opinion of that person was trustworthy or not based upon the time that they had to look at that image. Let that sink in for a second. That having more time to study someone's face, their mannerisms, only validated more that first impression that photo of that person made. You're judged in that first tenth of a second. In fact, that piece of trustworthiness was the very first thing that people lock in on when they see an image of somebody or when they see their face for the first time. So what does that mean for us in the real estate space? It means that your prospect has already decided whether or not they trust you before you finish your first sentence. While you're still at the front door, before you even walked in to take a tour of their home. When you're on Zoom, the very first thing they see on that tile of your photo on the screen could also be your headshot that's on your business card or that's on your website. So first impressions aren't formed in the first minute, they're formed in the first tenth of 1 second, which is why we need to win the doorway, which is this first step here in building rapport. So the idea behind this is as you're going on your listing appointment and you've knocked on the front door, here's what I would consider doing is you knock. Pretty much everyone has a Ring doorbell nowadays, so they might have actually looked at your face before they get to the door anyways. But you knock, take a step or two backwards away from the front door. So you create a little space between the front entry and yourself. You have your hands out in front of you. You don't have your arms folded. You don't have your arms behind you. You don't have your hands in your pocket, but you have your hands naturally placed in front of you. And you put on a little micro smile in sincerity. Be sincere to be sure, but make sure as they open up that front door, you are in a greeting position with your arms in front, welcoming, with a little micro smile on your face. Because it could be just that first tenth of a second when they first open the door, that in that moment, they are already starting to decide whether or not you're trustworthy and whether or not they're going to choose you to represent them in the sale of their home. So I'm actually going to give you kind of 4 action items today. So the first one is to win the doorway is take a breath, put on a little micro smile, take a step back, and wait for them to open the door. Okay. The second thing we're going to talk about here is getting them to talk about themselves. So I'm going to read again on this one. There's another study done by some really smart people at Harvard. And they put people through an MRI scanner. And it found that self-disclosure, which means just talking about yourself, when people talk about themselves, it lights up the same amount of dopamine reward circuits in their head as if they were eating delicious food or somebody was giving them money. Let me say that again. They ran people through the MRI. And when they were studying the brain and they were asking people about themselves, their brain lit up the same way the brain lights up as when you're eating your favorite slice of pizza, your favorite flavor of ice cream, or even to the level of someone saying, how would you feel if I gave you X amount of dollars? In fact, what they found, people were even willing to give up money for a chance to talk about themselves. That's how the brain reacts to questions like, tell me about yourself. What's most important to you? What are your hopes? What are your goals? What are your aspirations? What are you struggling with? You get people in a state of euphoria in this particular case, or a heightened sense of awareness at a minimum, when they have an opportunity to talk about themselves. So the fastest way to be experienced as a great conversationalist is to get the other person talking about themselves first. In fact, you become the source of a you become the source of a literal neurological reward. It's easier. I'm not a very good reader, as you can tell, but I just love the way that's stated. You become the source of a literal neurological reward when you get people engaged in talking about themselves. So think about this for a second. Maybe the last appointment you went on, the last buyer appointment that you went on, the last listing appointment you went on. Before walking out the door for that appointment, you probably sat around your office in front of your computer and you got prepared for it. You did some comparable sales to see what you thought the home was going to be worth. You might have brushed up on your marketing plan. You might have improved on some of the written materials you're going to bring with you. You might have done some role playing with somebody on the team to practice your presentation. And all those things are important to be sure. But far too often, what happens when we go on appointments, it becomes the Scott show. I'm ready to present. I'm going to tell you about my great marketing plan. I'm going to tell you about my stats and how we get homes sold faster than the competition. I'm going to tell you about my years of experience. I'm ready to present. I've got my spiel ready to go, my pitch ready to go, however you want to put it. I'm out the gate and I'm going to go wow them with all of my great knowledge about real estate. But when I do that, I've missed the opportunity. See, in the essence of building rapport, before I ever get a chance to present on who I am, I need to find out who they are. I need to find out what's most important to them. Right? We tell ourselves stories in our head about, every seller just wants the most amount of money in the shortest amount of time possible with the least amount of inconvenience. And that's true for a large number of the clients that we get the opportunity to serve, but that's not what is the heart behind everybody. See, every seller's got a different story. Every opportunity here is another opportunity to build rapport and to find out really what is most important to these folks. And the only way that you can do that is to ask questions. So at your next appointment, here's your next action item is try this. Before you start your presentation, ask them. So before I show you anything today, before I walk through my presentation, before I tell you about all the great things that Team Ostrode Properties does, let me just ask you a question. How'd you end up in this house? And then just stop talking. What was it that made you pick this one? What have you enjoyed about living here? Ask a question like, if we only accomplished one thing today in our conversation, what would be the most important thing that we accomplished today? A lot of times when we go on appointments, they're interviewing multiple agents to figure out which one they think is the best fit for them. Make yourself different and stand out. And at the very beginning of the conversation, say, I've got a bunch of things I want to share with you today. But before I do any of that, what I truly want to know is what's most important that you get out of our conversation today. What would make this a win for you? And then sit back, shut up, and let them talk. And as they're giving you their answer, make sure you've taken either an actual note, you've written that down in front of you, preferably, but at least a mental note. And then as you go through the rest of your conversation with them about the market analysis you've done, how you're going to market the home, you can refer back to the item or items that they said was most important to them that they got out of this experience of the real estate agent that they chose to work with. Okay. So the second key here is to get them talking about themselves by asking great questions and really finding out what's most important to them in the real estate agent that they want to hire and in the real estate experience that they're going to be endeavoring by either buying or selling with whichever agent is that they choose. Okay. The next one is match their energy. Oftentimes we think about this as the whole like mirroring and matching idea. Uh, there's also the same idea as the chameleon effect. It's a coin, that phrase was coined in an NYU study in the 90s. It says when you subtly mirrored a person's posture and gesture, that person liked you more and rated the interaction as smoother without ever noticing mimicry. Love that. What it means is matching someone's body language, their pace, and their energy creates an unconscious sense that this person is like me. And I know we already know this, but people trust people that are like us. So this one is a fun one to practice as well. This is matching their tempo. This is matching their pace of speech. This is matching the same vernacular that they use, using the same types of words that they use. This is your body language. If they're sitting forward in their chair, then you want to sit forward in your chair. If they're more relaxed and sitting back, then you want to match their posture with that too. So it's the tempo at which they speak with. It's the words in which they use, and it's their body language that they are demonstrating to you either across the table or across the screen with you to match what they're giving you. So if they're talking fast, talk fast back. If you can tell they're slow and they're more calculated in their speech and they really think about what they're saying, and you're the type that is more energetic by nature, make sure that you are slowing down and speaking more slowly the way that they're speaking to you. And however they are sitting in their chair, subtly match your body language to their body language. Now, the trick here is that as soon as they move their arm up like this, doesn't mean like the next second you do this, right? If they move from sitting with their arms in their lap to their arms crossed, look, Laura just did it too. She doesn't even know she's matching me. Unconsciously, she's matching me, right? So again, this is not about manipulation. This is not about Jedi mind trick. This is about making the person across the table from you feel comfortable and at ease in their conversation with you. But try this at your next appointment. So here's your next action item is work on this body language. Work on this mirroring and matching of their tonality and their pace of speech. In fact, if you want the bonus point on this one, see if you can get someone to mirror and match you. Now that would kind of be the Jedi mind trick, I guess. So maybe we shouldn't use the powers for evil here. But next time, you put your hand up like this, see if maybe they sit forward and put their hand up like this too. No, in all seriousness, I think this is one of those that we all have an opportunity to do. It is super subtle. It is, if you're conscious about it, it is easy to work into your presentation. But just be aware of it next appointment you go on. In fact, I would say this is that even if it doesn't even have to be with a potential client, do it with a loved one tonight. Have dinner with your kiddos tonight. Do it with them. If you're going out on on a first date with somebody tonight, you might improve your chances of success for a second date if you mirror and match what they're doing. By the way, if you do that and it works, you got to give me credit for it. Like if I get you, if well, actually any of these things, use the micro smile, get them talking about themselves, mirroring and matching them. If that leads to you getting a second date, then and a third date, and you guys end up getting married, I better get invited to that wedding because you wouldn't have that person without me. So you're welcome. All right, fourth thing. Go first on vulnerability. Go first on vulnerability is be willing to offer one small, genuine, personal disclosure early on in the conversation. And then you kind of have permission then to ask a slightly deeper question that then gets them opening up to talk more about their situation. I'm not going to quote this quite right. When I was brushing my teeth last night, I heard a stat that said credit card debt is I think at the highest level it's ever been. It definitely was like the highest it's been in years and years and years and years and years. Which means that across America, people are living outside of their means. They're spending, in theory, they're spending more money than they make, and they're accumulating more debt now as a nation than we have ever had. Okay. Any number of reasons could be behind that. That's not what today's conversation is about. However, the reality is that personal spending is exceeding personal income and people's debt level is increasing. And I share that because there are going to be times, if it's not already happening to you now, where people are making decisions about selling their home because they truly can't afford it. For some of us on the call, they're watching this right now, either on Zoom or on Facebook, or we'll watch the recording in the future. We remember back to what it was like in the mid 2000s and 2008, 9, 10, when we were going through the financial crisis, short sales and foreclosures and all of that. I mean, that's part of our story. I mean, we let 4 houses go during that time frame. And it was one of the most humbling and yeah, I don't know, humbling things, especially for a real estate professional, to be in a spot where I was a statistic where we stopped making mortgage payments. And I'm not suggesting that we're on a wave of a housing crash. I'm not suggesting that there's a wave of foreclosures or short sales coming. But I do know that short sales are out there, and I do know that people are struggling to make ends meet. So if you find yourself in a position where the person sitting across the table from you, however they got into your life, you know that there's some sort of financial thing that is prompting them to have to consider selling their home, and you have a story around your own financial situation where maybe you accumulated more debt than you would choose to, and you were drowning in payments and high interest, or you were missing mortgage payments, either considering doing a short sale or foreclosure, or you actually went through that with you and your family. They're willing to share that story early on in the conversation because, again, vulnerability creates trust and creates just intimacy and relationship with that person across from you. And it could be a positive story, it could be other things too, but don't be afraid to be vulnerable because when you are vulnerable, it gives the person across the table from you permission to be vulnerable as well. Okay. So as we wrap here, our challenge for the week is this, and you're going to see this consistent theme. If you were here, maybe you're here last week. If you weren't here last week, you might notice we have a new color theme going on. We moved away from the brown coffee tones. Laura let me at least keep a coffee icon on the screen, but we've moved to this blue and gold to match our new theme with 75 Thrive. And we're launching into this momentum series on 75 Thrive, actually next week, a week from tomorrow, on July the 9th. We've got a 10-week series coming up all around how to build momentum around your seller related business. So both from the lead generation side of things, the client management side of things, scaling up, social media, every aspect of working a seller business. That is our momentum series that kicks off next week. And each week inside of 75 Thrive, we're going to have a little bit of a momentum challenge for all of our subscribers. And so we're kind of matching that same language here on Coffee with Scott. And so here's our challenge for the week as it relates here is that what I'm asking you to do is go practice one of these rapport building exercises. So one of these here, winning the doorway, be a great asker of questions, mirroring and matching, or being willing to be vulnerable on appointment. This could be a listing appointment. This could be a buyer consultation. This could be any other social interaction that you would choose. But given the opportunity to do it with a prospect, in this case, a potential client, that's the best time. So which of those four things are you committed to working on this week? So take a note real fast. Which of those four, winning the doorway, getting them talking about themselves, matching their energy, or going first with vulnerability, which of those four skills are you going to use intentional time this week to get better at building rapport with the person across from you? That's mine and Laura's challenge to you this week. So I wish you guys success with that. I would love to hear what you guys are doing with that, where you're winning with that. And if you are looking for more content and a little bit more accountability and a community of people that are running in the same direction with you, I'd encourage you to consider joining us on 75 Thrive. Super affordable. It's $49 a month for an individual. There's some people out there that might be looking to actually hire a one-on-one coach that's more tailored specifically to your goals and what you're trying to accomplish. I'm always happy to have that conversation with somebody. Doesn't mean that I would be your coach, but I might be, or I could help connect you to somebody that'd be a better fit for you. And if you are in our local market and you like what we do and you'd like to interview to be part of our team, happy to have that conversation with you as well. But as always, our ask is that we're always glad you're here, but we want you to do something with what you heard. So don't let today's momentum stop here. Take your next step. Take your next step in some direction that's going to support your business and push you forward. And until I can figure out my Zoom screen and be back into a coffee shop for next week, I wish you guys success. Have a fantastic 4th of July. Go celebrate the birth of our nation. And we will see you next Wednesday right back here for another round of comedy with Laura and Scott.